Hey there, guys, and welcome back to Utility Sports. If you do enjoy NFL mock drafts, please subscribe to this channel because we continue to push out NFL mock drafts consistently on a week to week basis. We are always pushing out the NFL mock drafts, individual team mock drafts. We have a lot of the draft content that you desire. So please subscribe to this channel if you do enjoy the NFL draft content. So now we're going to get right into the video. We have the New York Jets on the clock, and it's been the consensus number one pick all year long, and that will be Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence fits in perfectly with New York. He's going to be their franchise guy, and he's a great quarterback to build around if you're the New York Jets. And I understand that Jets fans are longing for this pick. I think that will be the selection on draft night. I don't see a trade. I see them staying there and selecting Trevor Lawrence. Now, with the next selection, we have the Jacksonville Jags, and we will have them actually go with Justin Fields. Once again, this has been a pretty consistent pick for the last couple of weeks. Justin Fields is going to be another franchise quarterback in this class. He gives the Jaguars a huge arm. He's definitely a guy that you can build around, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Gardner Minshew. Are they going to keep him as a backup option, or are they going to explore the open trade market for his services? So going to be really interesting to see if they were able to pull a mid-round pick for him on the open trade market, but I see Justin Fields as the second overall selection. Now we're getting into the third pick, and it's pretty good here for the Cincinnati Bengals because they need an offensive tackle, and Penei Sewell is definitely the right choice here. They're able to replace Bobby Hart. They're getting a franchise tackle, whether they want to have him at left tackle or right tackle, it really doesn't matter. He has the versatility to do anything you want. He's a great run blocker. He's very good in the pass game as well. Let's not forget that. But his best trait is a run blocker. He's able to get to the second level to hit linebackers. So I really like the pick in Sewell here for the Bengals. Cincinnati is definitely a team that's looking to build around Joe Burrow, and Sewell is the correct pick for them. I think it makes all the sense in the world. Some other people have said, maybe go get Jamar Chase, but I think you need to be safe here. You need to go get Sewell and protect your franchise quarterback, especially after that season-ending injury that just happened this year. So for the next selection, we have the Chargers, and obviously tackle is definitely a need. The ideal situation would be that Cincinnati would win more games than them, and in terms fall back in the draft order, and then the Chargers could pick Sewell. But in this situation, Sewell's off the board. You do have a big need coming up with Melvin Ingram's contract expiring after the season. So if you're the Chargers, you need to make a decision. Are we going to re-sign him, or are we going to draft a cheaper alternative for him? And I think that they will opt to select that alternative option because Gregory Rousseau is a great power rusher. He's really, really strong. He's a guy that can do the bull rush. He has a variety of power pass rushing moves. And for the LA Chargers, I think it makes all the sense in the world to replace him. You're not going to have to pay him that contract because edge rushers command a lot of money on the open market. And if you're the Chargers, you have some other core players that you want to prioritize focusing in on. So for the Chargers, Gregory Rousseau will be the selection. Now for the Dallas Cowboys, I think there's some interesting options on the board. Obviously, Micah Parsons is on the board, but I don't see that necessarily as a need here. I think corner is probably their biggest need at this point. Patrick Surtain is going to be the selection. Sticky man-to-man guy. He has the ideal height, weight, athleticism, length. This guy is the prototypical number one corner. You pair him with Trayvon Diggs, and that secondary is looking a lot better once you make this selection. I really like Surtain from Alabama, and I think the Dallas Cowboys would be very wise to select him. This Cowboys team has had a lot of injuries so far this season, which has been really unfortunate for them, but they will be benefited by having a higher selection in the draft. So Surtain will be the pick for me at pick 5. I think it makes all the sense in the world for Cowboy fans. So at pick 5, you get yourself a nice man-to-man corner. Now at pick 6, this pick can go a lot of different ways. It really depends on what Matt Rule wants to do with this selection and what the general manager would like to do with this selection. You have a clear need in linebacker sitting here at with the 4th overall player in Micah Parsons. He's a phenomenal talent, and I've been mocking that consistently. But I also think that there is a need to get a franchise quarterback. So for that reason, we are going to go and select Zach Wilson. He's been a late riser on a lot of people's boards. Obviously, he's played so well this season. Zach Wilson, I think, could be their franchise quarterback. Joe Brady is going to be able to utilize him correctly. They have some weapons around him. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have DJ Moore. You got a lot of variety of weapons. You have Robbie Anderson, who's played well this season. So I think that's a great selection for Carolina. You get your franchise quarterback. You're going to have him on the 4-year contract plus the 5th-year option, which you'll likely accept if he is that franchise guy. I really like this selection for Carolina. It's really tough to pass up on Micah Parsons. I really do understand that from the perspective of we need to replace, obviously, Luke Kuechly, where there's been a gaping hole. But I think Zach Wilson to Carolina is good. You're trying to get your franchise quarterback, and obviously Teddy Bridgewater, you probably don't see as that franchise quarterback. I think Zach Wilson at 6 makes a ton of sense. In this mock draft, we are not doing trades, so there will be no trading up or down in this one. But if all the teams stay, in according to how this is ranked, I think that Zach Wilson to Carolina would be the selection. Now we're sitting here at 7 with Atlanta on the board. Atlanta is an interesting team. We do know their clear and obvious need is right here at the edge position. Edge is something that they've been, looking at since Vic Beasley's been gone, McKinley's been gone. And so now the consistent pick I've made is Kwity Paye from Michigan, who's going to provide some pass rushing help for them. And it really depends on the whole quarterback situation with Matt Ryan and the whole new regime that comes in, the head coach, the GM, everybody that comes in, they're going to have to make a collective effort to decide, where are we going with the quarterback position? And I think that for the time being, I'm going to be under the assumption that Matt Ryan stays in Atlanta. So we are going to go with Kwity Paye. I think Kwity Paye fills a huge need for the Atlanta Falcons. They need an edge rusher really bad. And Kwity Paye really fits the bill for them. And for Atlanta, you just got to continue to build up that defense. Obviously, I think your offense is fine. I really do. And for the time being, Matt Ryan is going to be the quarterback because we don't know who's going to be coming in at head coach and general manager. So with that being said, Kwity Paye will be the selection for Atlanta because that is a big need for them. Now looking at number 8, we have the Miami Dolphins. And this is one of my favorite picks in the draft in terms of the fit. I think Micah Parsons will be the selection to the Miami Dolphins. Miami is desperately looking for, a versatile player on defense. And I think Micah Parsons really brings that. I think Miami is a really good football team. I think they're an up-and-coming team, and it's really fortunate for them that they made that Laramie Tunsil trade to the Texans because the Texans have had a ton of struggles this year. Micah Parsons gives them that versatile linebacker that you can put all over the field. He's definitely a guy that knows how to rush the passer, especially in Brian Flores' system or scheme. I think that he's a great pick for Miami. He used to be a defensive end, actually, at one point in his career. So Micah Parsons has the ability to rush the passer. He's a sideline-to-sideline linebacker. He's a guy that can play in coverage. It was really unfortunate the opt-out, for him this season, but man, he's a special player to watch. Micah Parsons at 8 is a beautiful fit with the Dolphins. Now sitting here at 9, we have Philly. And if you're Philadelphia, you obviously have a few things on defense that you would look at and consider, but I think you need some dynamism to your offense. And I think that Jamar Chase would be the selection. They passed on one LSU receiver last year. Obviously, it did not work out. But I think Jalen Reagor is going to be a good player. And I think that Jamar Chase really is going to help out whoever the quarterback is next year going into it, whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's Jalen Hurts. It really depends on, what direction that the Eagles want to go. I think Jamar Chase fits in beautifully. He's a phenomenal route runner. He really does a good job with, his 6'1" frame. He's still able to shield off defenders really well. I really like that selection for Philly. You get a dynamic playmaking receiver, can run the route tree to its entirety, short, intermediate, long. This guy can ultimately do it all, and I think he's a special talent in this draft. Now here at 10, New York Giants are obviously not at the top of the division because in our last mock, they were, at that 19 spot where the Washington football team currently is. So now they jump up, 9 picks here, and you have the New York Giants at this selection here. there's a couple of things that they can look at. They can look at edge. They can look at linebacker. I really like the Blake Martinez signing that they had. But I think that if you're looking to help out the progression of Daniel Jones, I think it makes a ton of sense to go and get him a wide receiver, another one. So for that reason, we are actually going to go with Devontae Smith from the University of Alabama. He has been absolutely phenomenal for them this year, and he is a good route runner. He's a special talent. He's right there with Jamar Chase in terms of talent, because this guy has definitely proven that he's a top tier wide receiver in this class. A lot of people are having him fly up boards, and I think rightfully so. And for the New York Giants, it's all about getting another wide receiver to aid the progression of Daniel Jones, because that is your franchise quarterback. That's who Dave Gettleman has, believed in. You got him tools last year. They obviously drafted Andrew Thomas to help with that. But I think for New York, it's going to be all about, progressing Daniel Jones. They're going to get Saquon back next year. And I think Devontae Smith is a great pick here. Now at number 11, we have Detroit. In Detroit, once again, this is kind of like the Atlanta situation. No GM, no head coach. They were obviously both fired. So now we don't know the direction the franchise is going to go in terms of the quarterback situation. Matt Stafford is definitely a guy who people have had on the trading block, people want gone. It really depends on the next GM and coach. For this reason, I'm going to be under the assumption that Matt Stafford stays around in Detroit. Some Detroit fans like Matt Stafford. Some Detroit fans don't like Matt Stafford. But I think we are going to potentially replace Marvin Jones, who is in his contract season. That is Jalen Waddle from the University of Alabama. Gives them a lot of dynamic, game-changing play. He's a really, really quick receiver, and he's super dynamic with the ball. This guy can really make things happen. He's a home run guy. Every time he gets the ball in his hands, there's a chance that he can take it to the house. Really fun player, unfortunate with his injury, obviously, but Jalen Waddle is definitely a guy that gives you a dynamic player on offense. They already have one in DeAndre Swift, who is, showing that he could be a special player in this league. You add a Jalen Waddle to this offense, and they are going to look scarier and scarier. They have Kenny Golladay, obviously. They have TJ Hawkinson, who's a nice tight end. So if you're Detroit, you're feeling pretty good about that selection. In my opinion, I think it makes all the sense in the world to do that. Now with this next pick, we have the San Francisco 49ers. It's a tough situation because we don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be back next year. I'm not sure that he will. So under that assumption, I'm going to actually have them go with Trey Lance from the University of North Dakota, North Dakota State, excuse me. And for him personally, he didn't get to have that full season. He only had one game this season. Last year, he played an entire season and did not throw a single interception. He has a really good arm. He can throw from different arm slots. And for Trey Lance, I think the fit's good there in San Francisco. He's going to be a fun quarterback to develop for the 49ers. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see where Jimmy Garoppolo ends up. But I really like Trey Lance as a prospect, and he will be going 12 for me in this mock. Now you're here at Denver selection. Denver definitely needs a cornerback. I think they also could look at the tackle position as well. But for the all-intensive purposes of this, I think they're going to go with another man-to-man guy who is an opt-out, and that is Caleb Farley. He's got the nice frame. He's got the height and speed, and he's definitely has some length to him as well. This is a cornerback that, definitely will be game-changing in the secondary for the Broncos, and you just got to keep improving that defense. And Caleb Farley is a player that will fit in really nicely in Vic Fangio's defense, and I think that Farley will be the selection. Denver definitely needs, a corner at this point. I really do see them, also looking at that tackle spot, but I think Farley is the best player of that group in terms of, the remaining tackles and Farley himself. So I think that makes a lot of sense from Denver's standpoint. Now we're looking at a Minnesota team which does need some interior offensive line help, but this kind of depends on the whole Ezra Cleveland situation. Do they see him as a guard now, or do they see him as a tackle like they have drafted him out of Boise State? So if they do see him as a guard, which I think they might be leaning that direction because he has played well at his time at the guard position. I think they'll go Samuel Cosme from Texas. He's going to be able to fill in that left tackle spot. Brian O'Neill will likely stay at that right tackle spot. But then you look at the guard position, you have Ezra Cleveland, you have Bradbury at center, and then at the left guard spot, you're going to have to make some decisions on where you want to go. Obviously, Dakota Dozier's been filling in at the guard spot. But for the Vikings, you got to get a tackle. You definitely need to go in that direction. And I think since Ezra Cleveland has played so well at guard, I think it only makes sense to go get a tackle with that pick. Now we're here at 15, right? New England historically loves drafting tight ends. They love drafting talented tight ends. I've been trying to, preach this in my mock. I do think that they would look at a tight end very seriously at the selection. It really depends, where do they think they can go at the quarterback spot? I've been thinking about Jimmy Garoppolo potentially going back there if he does get cut with the 49ers. So looking at it from that perspective, it's hard to know exactly where, since we aren't through free agency yet, we don't know who the quarterback will be for sure for New England. So under that assumption that they're able to either re-sign Cam, they roll with Stidham, or they sign a free agent quarterback for the year, I could see them going with Kyle Pitts, vertical threat tight end. New England's offenses have often been best suited with a vertical threat tight end. Like obviously we saw all those years with Rob Gronkowski, they were so successful with him. Definitely a guy that I think New England could look into selecting. He's just a dynamic player. He's a really good player. He's a top 10 player in this class in terms of overall talent. I think Kyle Pitts is definitely a guy that New England could see. I could see New England taking at this spot just for value purposes. And, they do really well in New England systems generally when you get a good tight end in there. I do understand that they drafted 2 last year, but I don't know if that'll necessarily deter them from taking one at this selection. So I do understand that from that point of view. Maybe one of them could be a trade candidate, but getting a dynamic tight end does not hurt for whoever your next quarterback is. Now we're sitting here at Chicago's selection, and Chicago is a quarterback destination, right? I don't think we trust Mitch Trubisky moving forward. I don't think we trust Nick Foles moving forward if you're a Chicago Bears fan. So taking a look at that, I think Kyle Trask would be the selection here. He's an accurate quarterback. He's had a phenomenal year at the University of Florida, and they just suffered a tough loss to LSU, but Kyle Pitts was not playing in that game, to be fair to the Florida Gators. But Kyle Trask he's an accurate quarterback. Does not have the biggest arm, but he's proven that he can play quarterback in this league, and he's an accurate guy. He's makes good decisions as well, which is also very, very important, obviously, at the quarterback position. But Kyle Trask has been phenomenal at Florida this year. I think that the Bears would likely select him at this spot if he is still sitting here. Now we're looking at the Raiders selection. They are picking number 17. There's some things on defense that they could look to address. They also do need a linebacker. I think linebacker is something that definitely should be on the top of their radar. They do have an edge, or they have their edges. They haven't necessarily played super well. I could see Las Vegas going with an edge rusher or an interior defensive lineman. But for the purposes of this, I actually think that they'll go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I've watched the film of Koramoah, and he is really, really outstanding. He's definitely a guy. He's a competitor. He really can excel to the football. He can make tackles in open field situations. That's exactly what Oakland needs. Another guy in that, the middle of their defense, And I think Owusu-Koramoah would fit in perfectly with Oakland. He's a tough guy, the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think he fits in perfectly with Las Vegas. I really like, for him as a prospect, he's a guy that can make plays happen. And honestly, that's what Las Vegas defense needs more of. So now we're sitting here at the Baltimore's pick, and we have some guys on the board that would be pretty interesting at the interior offensive line spot. We have Wyatt Davis from Ohio State. And I think Wyatt Davis fills in a need because Baltimore moving forward is going to need a guard. And obviously they're a run-heavy football team. You need to get a guy that can go to the second level as a guard And Wyatt Davis has really shown that he's a really, really strong offensive lineman. And like I said, he can get to that second level. He can get to the linebackers and really spring big runs. So I think Wyatt Davis should be the selection here at 18. Now we're sitting here at 19. Washington still doesn't know what they're doing with their quarterback situation next year, whether it be Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins. I don't think either of those are options, or I don't think that they will roll with that next year. It's possible that they go with Alex Smith. I don't think it's going to be Haskins. Another guy to consider, obviously, is Kyle Allen. And so now with the Washington pick, I think that they will still target quarterback at this spot. There is no trading in this mock draft, but I do have Mac Jones going here. He's one of the front runners for the Heisman. Mac Jones has been phenomenal, especially with Devontae Smith at the University of Alabama. I could really see Mac Jones going here at the 19 spot. It's a little higher than people would anticipate. I do understand that, but for the need for Washington, you have to have a quarterback going into next year. Whether or not they roll with Alex Smith, we're not exactly sure where Alex Smith stands with the organization in terms of contract or what have you, but Mac Jones will be the selection just purely based off of need, because I'm not sure exactly what they would do if they didn't take a quarterback at this spot. If they had looked later in the draft, I don't know if they feel comfortable letting Mac Jones fall even further in case a team like New Orleans would like to select him. So now we're sitting at pick 20. And Arizona definitely has some interesting needs. I think corner is one that you could consider for Arizona at this spot. I also think Jay Tufele, interior defensive lineman. I think Arizona really needs to address that interior of their defensive line. I think this pick makes a lot of sense. I do understand the need for a corner as well. So, don't quote me on this, just saying that I think they only need interior defensive line, but they also need a cornerback. So for the Arizona Cardinals, I think that they could look at Jay Tufele, a guy that can, get after the passer, but he can also defend against the run. I think that's really important for the Cardinals at this point. And if they want to continue to be a contending team, they need to do, a good job of defending the run. So now we are looking at Miami, and Miami ended up taking Micah Parsons with their first selection. Looking at pick 21, I think that they could look at wide receiver to help Tua Tagovailoa. And I think Rashad Bateman gives them a really nice target. He's a big play receiver. He's clearly one of the better route runners in the country, and he's also very good in contested catch situations. But he has, one of the highest yards per catch last season. He's been in and out of the lineup in terms of he had the opt-out right before the season. He opted back in. A lot of inconsistent play at the University of Minnesota, especially at the quarterback spot from Tanner Morgan. But Rashad Bateman's a big play receiver, and Miami needs more of that, more big dynamic plays. And I think he would fit in very nicely with the Miami Dolphins. Now we're sitting at pick 22. We have some interesting needs for Tampa Bay because they need the interior of their defensive line, which is a place I think they could look. But I also think that they need to address interior O-line. I think that with their selection, it's a little tougher because they have Alex Kappa at that right guard spot. I think that's a replaceable position, but they also have an Ndamukong Suh coming up on his contract, which they likely won't re-sign. But I think that they do need to protect Tom Brady in this situation. And we are going to go Elijah Vera Tucker. He will be the pick. He'll be able to play guard instead of Kappa. You have Marpay at the left guard spot then. I think that's going to be a good pick for Tampa. I think you have to continue protecting Tom Brady, giving him as much time as you can as he ages. And I think that will be the selection for Tampa. Now here at 23, we have the Colts. And the Colts have to monitor the Anthony Castonzo situation in terms of if he will retire or not. I think Christian Darrisaw would be a really good selection for them. Gives them an insurance policy at that tackle position. And quite frankly, I think that would be phenomenal for them. You have to have a plan ready if Castonzo calls it a career. And getting Darrisaw at this pick is good value. So if you're the Colts, you're feeling really good about that selection at 23. Get that insurance policy just in case, he hangs it up. We've heard some rumblings about him possibly doing so. So that's going to be the pick for them at 23. Now we move here at 24. And at Tennessee, is actually, in terms of sacks per game, I think they're second last in the NFL in terms of producing sacks, which I think that creates a need at edge at this point. And I think that's tough. I think Joseph Osai will be the selection here. He was, I think, number 4 in the nation in terms of forced fumbles. And Osai is going to get after the quarterback for Tennessee. You have to get another edge. You have to apply more pressure if you're Tennessee. They play good defense as a whole, but generating pressure, just so there's not so much pressure on the cornerbacks on the back end of your defense. For Tennessee, I think that makes a ton of sense to get another rusher. So Joseph Osai from Texas will be the pick at that spot. Now we have the New York Jets, and the New York Jets obviously drafted Trevor Lawrence, but I think they could also look one of two ways. I think they could get Travis Etienne, who's a dynamic running back from Clemson, but I also think they could look at the wide receiver position as well. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence will need somebody to throw to. They have Denzel Mims currently. They have Jamison Crowder, but I think another target would benefit him. But I think there's a little bit of depth in this class in terms of wide receiver. So for the purposes of this selection, I don't think Etienne would get back to them with their next pick, but I do think there are some playmaking wideouts that you could get with their next selection. So for that reason, we will have Travis Etienne go, his counterpart at Clemson, and Travis Etienne will be a dynamic running back for them. He gives them an option out of the backfield in the passing game. He's also a really nice runner, can break tackles. He's elusive. I like that pick at 25 for the New York Jets. At pick 26, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they definitely need an offensive tackle. Cam Robinson has not really worked out for the Jaguars. He's had a ton of issues there. And I think that we can start looking at guys like Rashawn Slater, Liam Eichenberg. So we're actually going to go with Rashawn Slater here. Jacksonville needs to protect Justin Fields, and I think that pick ultimately really does that for them. They have Norwell under contract. They also have Brandon Linder at center. They have Jawan Taylor, who they took in the second round at right tackle. But you definitely need to get another tackle to protect your franchise guy, and Cam Robinson hasn't shown the ability to do so. So he will be the pick at 26. At pick 27, we need to desperately help out Myles Garrett in generating pressure. I think that Azeez Ojulari would be the selection for them. Obviously, you have to have another guy opposite of him. Olivier Vernon will be gone after this season, and Azeez Ojulari will be able to apply some pressure as an edge rusher. And I think that pick makes a ton of sense for Cleveland. Keep improving your defense, and especially the defensive line in the edge spot. So Azeez Ojulari will be the pick. Now looking at Buffalo, I think you need another corner at this point. I think that Tre'Davious White is obviously a phenomenal talent, but I think you need to have another guy. And J.C. Horn, who this year has climbed significantly up people's boards, would be a good selection for them. You got to get another corner outside of Tre'Davious White, and I think that would be a really, really good selection for them. Keep improving the defense, keep working on that. They did a nice job improving their offense last year in the Diggs deal. That obviously cost them a first-round pick, but it was so worth it. That trade really made sense for both teams. So good job by Buffalo on that deal. Now we're looking at Green Bay, and Green Bay is a team that I could see looking at corner. I can see looking at wide receiver. I think both are very, very interesting opportunities for them, but I'm going to have them go another man-to-man guy in Eric Stokes. I think he works out wonderfully for the Green Bay Packers. You have to get another corner in Green Bay. You have Jair Alexander, and I think Eric Stokes fits in nicely as the other outside corner. That would be a very nice selection for Green Bay. Keep improving the defense. Last time I had Sean Wade, but I don't think he's as good of a fit because he is more of a slot corner. You need another outside guy in Green Bay. So Eric Stokes would be the pick. Now we're looking at pick 30. The Pittsburgh Steelers do need a running back at this point. I think Najee Harris would be a nice selection here. You look at his numbers, he's putting out outstanding numbers at the University of Alabama. He's a really tough runner, has a really, really nice stiff arm. He's able to run through arm tackles. He's a powerful guy. And that really shows Pittsburgh Steelers football, being able to just run it down your throat. And I think Najee Harris would be a phenomenal fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You get a guy that's going to be able to carry the rock a ton in a football game. He's going to get, take hits, but he has the body and the build to do so. So now at New Orleans, we are looking at a couple of positions. You could look at the linebacker positions. You could look at quarterback, but I just think that'd be too much of a reach with the current board that sits. But I think that you could look at cornerback. I think Shaun Wade or Asante Samuel Jr. or Darian Kendrick would be a good selection. Man, this is a tough one for me, but I think I'm going to have them go Shaun Wade with the selection. You definitely have to get another corner there. You have Janoris Jenkins, you have Marshawn Lattimore, but Shaun Wade would fit in really nicely as that slot corner for New Orleans, and that would be a really, really tough defense to go against. You have Shaun Wade at that corner spot. Man, that would be a tough match for any other wide receivers having those guys. But now looking at pick 32, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that they do need to get another playmaker at corner, but I don't know if they will go that direction. I think that they only have 2 wide receivers under contract next year, and I think they would look to draft and replace. I think Terrace Marshall would be a really nice selection for them. Terrace Marshall is definitely going to be a guy who is able to be a red zone threat. I think he really gives you that. Terrace Marshall is a guy who, if we saw last year from the LSU team, he was that third wide receiver, didn't get a ton of recognition. There was a lot of struggles with LSU this year, but he was that consistent red zone threat for the LSU Tigers this season. He's a good route runner, once again, and he has a knack for the end zone. Kansas City would be, very satisfied to have him at 32. You can get that 5th-year option on him as well. So I think that would be a phenomenal selection for the Kansas City Chiefs, and plus that 5th-year option. So taking a look, holistically at this draft, I will scroll through it one more time just so we can see the selections. And there's a couple of picks that you can argue that they could look at other positions. Also, my bad on the Las Vegas Raiders. I kept saying Oakland on accident. Totally my fault. But taking a look at it as a whole, I think this is pretty solid in terms of the positional needs and where teams might be looking. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. I do appreciate your support. Please hit the subscribe button if you do like NFL draft content videos. Also, hit the like button if you did enjoy what you saw today. I do appreciate the support, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video.